on the enhancing railway freight footprint in Sri Lanka. Okay, so we were waiting for this event from Professor Baker's interesting keynote. So let me quickly give you some kind of context before we start the proceedings of the workshop. Well, like we all know, rail is being identified as a means of transport, not only from an economic perspective, but also from a sustainability perspective. So with that, we see a trend, an increase in trend around the globe for increase in rail transport, especially rail freight transport. However, when we consider the situation here in Sri Lanka, I'm just showing you figures back in 1934, 85 years ago, we used to have, if you go by the revenue earned by the Sri Lanka railways, the 57% of the revenue came from the rail freight. And whereas the latest annual report of the Sri Lankan Railways, what it tells us is that back in 2019, the revenue coming from rail freight has been just 7%. So this sets the background for the workshop, which we are holding today. So these are the objectives. Well, as knowing rail freight is not really being utilized as one of the prominent means of transportation. We have set these objectives for the workshop today. We will first review the current rail freight transport performance and understand the current issues and further potential of rail freight transport in Sri Lanka. Secondly, we have invited some eminent speakers from the Western countries. They will share the freight transport best practices in the West. And then we will jointly try to identify high-level strategies to overcome current challenges to improve rail freight transport in Sri Lanka. And finally, hopefully, we are looking at this interesting pace where to develop at least a framework for a white paper to increase the rail freight transport in Sri Lanka. Well, with that, we have invited an eminent panel of speakers today. We have 8 speakers lined up. We're going to start with Mr. Monty Ranatunga, the Secretary, Minister of Transport of Sri Lanka, who will speak about the vision of the Sri Lankan government in terms of promoting transportation and rail transport, particularly. Then we have Mr. J.I.D. Jayasundara, the General Manager of Sri Lanka Railways, who will speak about the current challenges as well as the opportunities of at the Sri Lanka Railways, particularly in terms of the freight transportation. Now you see, we start from the visionary level, then we get into the strategic level at the Sri Lankan Railways. Then we are moving to hear from the customers. Customers' voice is what is mostly important. So representing the customers, we have Mr. Darshanadi Silva, the Assistant Group General Manager from Prima Group, one of the companies who already uses rail freight to a great extent. And we also have Mr. Vatsara Vedege, who is an quarry expert from Siam City, Thailand, who the organization is again another organization who uses rail freight already. Now, having heard from the customers, we are also going to hear from a bit of an academic perspective. Dr. Navaratna Raja from the Department of Civil Engineering, University of Peradeniya here in Sri Lanka, will speak on behalf of the infrastructure issues, particularly in the track infrastructure. Then we have invited to hear from further upper part of the Nordic region, Dr. Philip Tretton, joining all the way from Luleå, Sweden, the beautiful city, who's representing the Railways Research Center, who will talk a little bit about the Swedish model, how they are collaborating the private sector and the rail service providers and some other organization in offering the services. We also have Dr. Matthias Asplund joining again from Sweden, from Trafikverket, which is the Swedish transport administration, who will also talk about particularly about the technicalities of the track maintenance. I hopefully we will see some connection with what Dr. Navaraja is going to talk about. And we also have further west Dr. Krishna Jha joining from USA, who will who's representing the Optim Texas, who will talk about how to optimize the existing network in the rail freight. With that, we have also invited, we will listen to the prominent panel of speakers which I presented on the earlier slide. We have also invited resource persons, Dr. Karunananda from Department of Civil Engineering, Open University of Sri Lanka, again regarding infrastructure matters. Mr. Asela Patirana, who is a superintendent engineer from Sri Lankan Railways, especially to talk behalf of the operational issues. Mr. Nalina Dayanand, Head of Logistics, Prima, Ceylon, Sri Lanka. Then Mr. Nalinathu Korala from the same organization. Mr. Abetissa Bandara, Logistic Manager, Ceylon Petroleum Storage and Logistics Limited, who is another customer of Sri Lankan railway freight. We have also invited Mr. Manoj Jekanayake, Chief Miller from Serendip Flour Mills Private Limited, who is another potential customer of Sri Lankan Railways. Then we also have Dr. Asela Kulathunga from the head of the Department for Manufacturing and Industrial Engineering, University of Peradeniya, joining as resource persons during the panel discussion. Finally, I should also introduce Dr. Dhammika Senevirathna, who will be the moderator of today's session, who will be handling the panel discussion once the speeches are over. Dr. Dhammika Senevirathna is currently working as a senior scientific researcher attached to Tecnalia, Spain. He has over 20 years of experience in different fields, including as a motive power engineer at Sri Lankan Railways some years back. So he's going to do the moderation part during the panel discussion, which we will start in about 1.5 hours time or so. With that, we will move to the next stage. So with all the respect, we will start today's speeches from Mr. Monty Ranatunga, the Secretary, Ministry of Transport, Sri Lanka, who will talk about the direction where we want to be, Sri Lankan government policy for the transport sector. Over to you, Mr. Monty Ranatunga.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ilan Kong. So, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon to all of you. So firstly, I wish to extend my sincere thanks to the organizing committee, in particular, Dr. Ilan Kong, for inviting me to say a few words regarding the government policies for the transport sector. I wish to deliver my short speech at this important event, which is on enhancing railway freight footprint, organized by the Department of Manufacturing and Industrial Engineering, Faculty of Engineering, University of Peradeniya, in participation with the other respective partners. As per our common understanding, logistic and transport are hand-in-hand subjects. Logistic cannot be realized without linking with the transport, as consumer is the end user of any product. Linking or bridging of production from the factory to consumer is basically done by the transport. Under that scenarios, having very close relationship between these two is paramount. When we talk about the government's vision, it aims to have a prosperous nation with a productive citizen, a happy family, and a disciplined society. It's my belief that all three of these visionary points should be reflected even through the transport system. Consequently, when you look at the role of the transport sector, it has to play a bigger role in terms of the government policy. It is fact that the transport sector is invariably in forefront. However, there are specific extents that are acknowledged in the national policy framework, vistas of prosperity and splendor, to lead the transport sector to offer a reliable, convenient, and comfortable transit facility to have that productive citizens, happy family, and a disciplined society. In order to achieve these goals, the sector is operated under the Cabinet Ministry, the Ministry of Transport, and the State Ministry of Vehicle Regulation, Bus Transport Services, Train Compartments, and Motor Car Industry. These two ministries have adopted the summarized version of the national policy for the transport sector as to establish friendly and sustainable transport system for passengers, freight transportation through maintaining infrastructure, service standards, management of road traffic and accidents, formulation of joint timetable and strengthening of the institutions on the purview of the ministry. This summary is adopted by taking identified sectoral policies in the national policy of the current government into consideration. Land transport is an identified as subsector in the national policy portfolio. The national policy is aiming to develop rapid transport systems by introducing facilities such as metro rail, light rail, and the circular roads, sky bridges, flyovers, park and ride systems, and vertical parking facilities to ease the traffic burden with optimum land utilization. It is with pride I mention that developing an environmental friendly transport system has been recognized as a national policy. This effort has numerous benefits that are financially measurable and socially beneficial. This certainly contributing to realize the overall vision of the government, a productive citizen and a happy family. It is essential to improve road transportation because majority of the mobility happens through the road transportation here in Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka Transport Board alone provide services to nearly a billion of passengers annually. Yet we all know the need is not fulfilled when we see the crowded buses and passengers waiting in bus stands for long hours and the sheer number of private vehicles trying to get to places daily. Road transportation improvement is trying to catch up with the increasing need. There are some novel activities proposed to reduce the gap. Rail transport system in Sri Lanka is very popular but greatly underutilized up until now. Needless to mention the economical benefits and the environmental benefits that are linked to rail transport system. The improvements are not only targeting the mass passenger movements under these policies, but also a heavy burden can be taken away from the roads by proposed improvements of freight transport using railway, which is currently less than 1% out of total freight transportation. I would further wish to say a few words regarding the existing railway line, which has a long history, nearly 150 years. Some of the lines are still lined with 14.5 axle load that is not compatible with the modern and current freight transport requirement and need to be replaced with at least 22.5 type axle load rail line to cater the freight demand. The government policy for the transport sector has given a high priority to reduce road accident and also to recognize the dilemma that the victims will face. Therefore, a separate institute is looking to minimize road accident, actively advocating the need and the mechanism of minimizing the road accident. In fact, their theme is zero accidents, although activities such as traffic regulation enforcement are not the activities identified on the transport sector. They are uh, tremendously important in improving road transport. We all know how an urgently driver can create so we all know that an unruly driver can create a kilometer long traffic or hour long delays. There is a great need to have coordinated collaboration in achieving success in this sort of cross-cutting requirements. Well, now what are the ways the ministry is working towards realizing these goals? Ministry has adopted a set of development priorities. The ministry has identified providing an environmentally friendly transport system is a top priority. The global warming and climate change challenges and transport issues are rarely brought to the same table for discussion. But the numbers show how negatively the transport emissions are impacting or rather contributing to the climate change. Here at the Ministry of Transport has now begun to connect all development criteria to give priority to maintaining environmentally friendly approaches. Those of us who have experience with the public transport know how reliability is a factor in public transport. This can be from total cancellations to delays with no alternatives in many cases. This is not just limited to any one mode of transport. Trains get delayed as much as the buses do for reasons regarding reason ranging from traffic to engine trouble. The ministry has taken steps to improve the reliability in these services from many angles. Minimizing traffic congestions and road traffic accidents are well-focused priorities of the ministry. The ministry has already implemented to accomplish success in these priorities. A project is implemented under the Ministry of Transport to strategically manage the corridor traffic by permitting vehicles to the city based on the passenger capability. Loss of real income in transport operation has been a real sore topic in transport operations for decades. The need for a corruption-free transport system was there for a long time. As a result of many discussions, the ministry has prioritized developing an IT-based fare collection system. A project functioning under the Ministry of Transport is working on the strategy. Soon, there will be trials in the Western province. The next priority the ministry has identified cannot be any less important than any of the priorities we already discussed. Facility improvement at railway stations and bus terminals can contribute to increase in the opportunity for the public to use the public transport. One of the reasons many travelers choose other means other than the public transport is the time that they have to spend in rail and bus terminals that are below the standards in many ways. Cleanliness is one of the key points in order to facilitate an appealing environment. First, we have to provide it and we have to maintain the standards. We have succeeded in initiation. The trend turning towards this, our priority is to keep on improving these facilities and maintaining standards. The ministry has recognized the need for maintaining the vessels or the transport carriage to provide a satisfactory service to the public. The look or the feel of a bus or a railway carriage is a decision-making point for a passenger who has other options. Therefore, these priorities are not only less important than the other in improving transport to facilitate a satisfactory service to the public. Therefore, the railway has already taken an initiative to restore this dilapidated trailing stocks into modern comfort vessels locally to provide comforts to the public in without having to incur an unbearable cost. It is with the participation of the private sector. So ministry cannot function in isolation. It needs to all support from all partners and stakeholders. Therefore, the ministry has identified creation of friendly environment for local industry in transport sector as a priority. A lack of coordination and not utilizing the most convenient and profitable system for freight transportation is a known problem for the sector, as it has been prioritized in the national policies. In parallel to it, the ministry also has identified the same as a key priority. Plans have been devised to use rail, ports, and air transport for efficient international freight movements. There is a proposal in development to handle uh, island freight transport through organized logistics centers focusing the main travel distribution centers and the receiving points of international cargo. Vehicle registration is a major activity related to transport. There is a dire need for providing an efficient system where the authorities and the consumer can comfortably use and aware of. Therefore, e-monitoring system as an IT-based complete solution for vehicle registration is our last but not least priority for the Ministry of Transport. Since talking about the freight transport using railways is the topic today, it is important to mention that all the moment railways is absent a proper connectivity with the ports and airports. Ministry of Transport has planned to connect main three ports of Colombo, KK, Aspinkomali, and Katunayake Airport to facilitate the freight transport through railways. It is essential to develop existing railway infrastructure of tracks, bridges, signaling systems, warehouses, stations, and rolling stocks to address the demand, both the passenger and the freight transport. Even though existing resource constraint, both finance and the human, hinder the effort. Proper results-based short-term, medium-term, and long-term priority-based plan has been identified as a key in this regard. Ministry of Transport is now in the process of accomplishing it in collaboration with the stakeholders, including private sector as well. So having said that, let me to conclude my short briefing. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rantunga, that interesting talk. Unfortunately, Mr. Rantunga will not be able to wait for the panel discussion at the end, so we'll have to release him a bit early. With that, I will invite Dr. Senevirathna, who is our moderator, to maybe ask a question, and then we can probably release Mr. Rantunga. Dr. Senevirathna, over to you.
Thank you, Prasanna. Thank you very much, Mr. Ranatunga, for very informative talk. Actually, I wanted to ask you a few questions, but I will limit it to two. In Sri Lanka, we have modes of transportations like road, rail, waterways, by sea as well. And as I know, there are very limited ways of air freights. So how do you see freight enhancement in all Sri Lanka as a whole? That means linking all these modes together. Actually, I have listened to your presentation and you mentioned about these logistic hubs. If you can explain more with that, would be great.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a good question. So actually, regarding these logistic hubs, when we talk about the freight transportation, in particular the vegetable transport, and also some other production from various parts of the country. So we have earlier actually, you know that the railway has been designed for the freight transport in by the British regime, but unfortunately now it has turned to the other way around, and we'll have to establish sort of logistic centers based on the warehouses that have already been established by that time. So now that is the plan. So we'll have to have several pilot projects for this vegetable transportation in particular. And also, you know, that we have already have several agreements with the Prima, INSI, and Petroleum Corporation as well. So, but these logistics centers, of course, show some, you know, hinders. I mean, the lacking part of this total system. So that's why we are thinking about to establish these logistics centers, in particular based on the multimodal transport hubs that are going to establish mainly based on the 7 corridors in Colombo metropolitan area. So we have already established one multiple transport hub in Makumbura in Kottawa area. You may know sometimes because you are here in Sri Lanka. Likewise, next will be very recently, we are going to start in Kadawathawan. And we are planning to establish Gampaha and Moratua zone. So likewise, we want to establish the logistic hubs together with these transport hubs. Then we can use all modes of transportation and freight transport could be handled by those transport hubs. That's the plan. Thank you.
Okay. My second question is that usually in Sri Lanka, we have different ministries, like now you are in transportation ministry, but for freight, what I see is that there are some other important ministries as well, like road developments, and as well as for, as you said, for vegetables, you need to connect with agriculture ministry or fisheries or industry, Ministry of Industry. So how you, do you have a plan or kind of a way to connect all these ministries together, mainly for the freight?
Yeah, actually, as Sri Lankan, you know, the compartmentalization is the real problem we are facing even nowadays. So the ministries and department, they are working separately. No, any collaborative efforts. So actually, I am very new to this ministry, but I am trying to link with in particular the highways and the port ministry and the agriculture ministry in particular. So we have already have some collaboration with the petroleum and other partners, even with the private sector partners as well. But there should be some coordinated efforts, maybe national wise, to, you know, get the collaboration of those ministries and institutions in order to make success of this freight transportation. I am doing that. I try my best to do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's nice to hear. And very little question, because during this discussion it arises. Uh, do you have any feasibility studies working with academics like universities for these freight hubs, where to put and how to do the networking and all these kind of things?
Actually, I want to mention one thing here. So I have already, the work with the UN ESCAP regarding this freight transportation using railways. So they have, we have actually carried out a survey together with the UN ESCAP, and now report is ready to be published. So based on that, the UN is really willing to help us to develop this freight transport using railway. Maybe in a couple of months' time, we will be able to, really implement that findings. And we are now in the process of preparing the short-term, medium-term plan based on that. So we can share that maybe once we finalize the things.
Okay. I just wanted to ask
And also,
whether...
I could not mention one thing. So we are collaborating with the University of Mora to regarding this transport development, and intelligent transport needs to be introduced, and get their involvements into the transport development. And also now I see that the Peradeniya and the Sri Javadanpura also, they have capacity to help us. So I humbly request you to please help me, because I too have a dream. The government has a dream to develop this transport, in particular freight transport, to reduce these thousands of the trucks are moving here and there, and they are disturbing the other mode of transportation, and the environmental is affected due to these CO2 and other emissions. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you. Over to you, Prasanna.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Senevirathna. Thank you very much, Mr. Ranatunga, for that insightful talk. So really glad to hear about what the government is looking forward to. Mr. Ranatunga, you may stay as long as you can, but with your commitments, like you can leave as anytime you wish to do so.
Dr. Ilankon, so though I am not here, Mr. Jayasundara is there, the general manager railway, so he will be instrumental to clarify, if you want to clarify anything. So he is well aware about these systems and the plans that we have already made. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ranatunga. Yeah, with that note, in fact, we are moving to Mr. Jayasundara, who is the General Manager of Sri Lankan Railways, who will be talking about the strategic position of the Sri Lanka Railways and telling us a little bit about the challenges and opportunities. And I should also mention this, with the time restriction, we will not have a discussion forum after every speaker. Anyway, that is how it was originally planned. We'll let the speakers talk, and any questions you can please raise in the Q&A, and we'll take them all once the panel discussion is started around maybe 1 hour from now. So, okay, Mr. Jayasundara, over to you, please.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everybody. I am honored to be in this panel, so I think I'll take a few minutes to detail what we are trying to do regarding freight transportation at the Sri Lanka Railways. I think first of all, I'll start with a bit of history. Railway came to Sri Lanka in 1864, mainly for transportation of the freight. But wherever they have put up a railway station, the town centers got developed, population centers got developed. So therefore, eventually railway become the most preferred way of transportation cross-country for the passengers also. I think by that time, railway was having a monopoly, transport monopoly. From 1864 until I think 1945, maybe after until Second World War, railway was having a monopoly. We cannot compare current situation with the situation at that time, because 1934 means at that time railway was enjoying a monopoly. But with the development of road network and availability of the road vehicles, the Sri Lanka railway start losing that monopoly. You know, Sri Lanka is a small island nation. I think from Kankasantore to Adain Matara is around 400 kilometers. 400 kilometers. So therefore, attraction for the railway, freight transporters to the railway is somewhat limited. The reason is only if there are certain items that railways uniquely positioned. For example, coal or iron ore or even fuel. I think not we are uniquely positioned. But if we coming from the origination to the end destination through the railway line, that is economical. But sometimes if you consider the container transportation, all that, the double handling comes. So railway start losing that monopoly. It was a gradual loss. I think railway department fought really hard during the time of our former General Manager Rampala. I think he fought really hard with government policies to ensure railway would remain at the forefront of freight transportation and passenger transportation. But due to double handling and maybe some inefficiency in the railway system, gradually we lost that freight share. Initially, I think we were having 60 to 30% sometimes, but it has gone down to 1% of the freight now carried by the railway. So therefore, what I tell is the death was a natural death. That's due to it's a one way we were not able to meet the challenge faced by the competitors, and other way around, there are certain things the railway cannot control. But with the expansion of the road network and the road vehicles coming to the road network start getting congested. That in turn now it has created opportunity for railway to come back into the freight transportation as well as into the passenger transportation. And also the environmental factor. Now, so a lot of countries, for example, Singapore, UK, and European countries, they are saying after 2030, 2040, we are not going to allow diesel vehicles to come onto our cities. And also there are some railway engine manufacturers, they are going into electrical engines, and they are no longer producing diesel engines. So therefore, the imperative is for their railway to now go into electrification and cater the freight requirements in environment friendly manner. And due to the road congestion and those environmental concerns, the people are now thinking about coming back to railway. So that's a great opportunity for the railway. So I think with the guidance of our Transport Secretary, Mr. Monty Ranatunga, we are trying to address the current situation and attract more freight to the railway. But railway is handicapped by many issues. One example is as our secretary mentioned clearly little earlier, the carrying capacity of a road network. If we consider our railway network, we got this connectivity between Colombo Harbour and Trincomalee Harbour. We got the track connectivity, but the track is not up to the standard. We cannot carry much of an axle load because that's limited by the way it was constructed, and currently it has been maintained. And also, unfortunately, even though we talk about carrying freight by the railway, we are no longer having that connectivity to Trincomalee Harbour. That has been removed 30 years back. We cannot go to the Ashraf Jetty. And even if you consider the Colombo Harbour, even so one line is there, is not being used for the freight transportation. So we need to find a way to go back to those ports and serve their freight transportation needs. Because at the initial stage, when railway came to Sri Lanka, the umbilical cord that fed our network was the Colombo Harbour. But today, not even a single freight carrier leaves Colombo Harbour per year. So we need to go back there. I think for that to happen, two things are needed. One thing is the willingness of the railway, and we need funding from the government. But most important one is we need our clients, suitable clients who are willing to use railway and put their confidence in railway and give their freight to us. So that has been a challenge. So I think by participate in this kind of forum, if we can bring those customers, potential customers who are willing to use railway services, provided railway is going to give what they need. So that's something we can look forward, and we can understand their needs and cater for their requirements and start moving freight through the railway. So for that purpose, I think our marketing division as well as our engineers, they are all willing. So we need to go back into business. We have been excelled at, where we once held a monopoly, but today we cannot talk about a monopoly. Maybe we can go for 10% of the trains freight transportation share in our Sri Lankan network. So that's what I'm striving for. That's what I'm targeting. And for that purpose, I think CILT as well as University of Peradeniya, I think other universities and other consultancies, I'm looking forward to learn, and I'm looking forward to get advice from those agencies to target those business areas, target those freight transportation needs through railway facilities. I think that way, I think we can start our conversation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jayasundara. To the point, putting the challenges and the opportunities on the table. With that, I think during the panel discussion, we can develop a very fruitful discussion. So hopefully you can wait till the panel discussion comes. So with that, So with that, as Mr. Jayasundara just mentioned, thank you very much, Mr. Jayasundara. Anyways, with that, as Mr. Jayasundara just mentioned, the customer is very important in this conversation. That is why we have lined up a couple of customers here. Mr. Darshanidhi Silla from the Prima Group Sri Lanka, the Assistant Group General Manager, who will be talking a little bit about the customer perspectives and letting us identify the hindering factors and the possible way out. Over to you, Mr. Silva.
Thank you, Dr. Lakun. Thank you very much for inviting me to speak at this session.
Mr. Darshan Silla.
Sorry, I will be switching my camera off because there's a little lag in
exactly.
Disconnect. I will switch it off.
Yeah,
right.
That will help. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so basically, to give a small introduction on, or at least my experience with railway, I think I'll have to summarize about 10 years of experience into 10 minutes. So I would like to just touch on a few key areas that would probably encourage you to ask more questions in terms of the experience we've had. So over the last 10 years, Prima, and of course, I was involved in this project, which is now kicked off finally from 2017. And we work with about 5 ministers, several secretaries, several GMRs. So it has been quite a challenge from the start to get this project going. If I may first touch on what reasons a private sector would even look at investing in rail, the number one reason would be transport cost. That would be the general reason why a private sector would look at rails. So when they look at cost, the next question comes in is how much do we have to invest to save this cost? So that was the original question that Prima had in terms of getting this project going. So when I say, if I touch a little bit on infrastructure cost, it is how do we facilitate door-to-door delivery at a cost that would be cheaper than road. So obviously road can reach the customer directly, whereas rail will have to come to a particular hub. So our studies initially was to see how much we would have to invest in a hub to bring railway, to bring our cargo to that hub, and then also to the doorstep of our customers and still be cost effective.
Currently, again, make off.
Sorry, I think there's another. Sorry, can I continue?
Sorry about that, Mr. Silla. Please continue. Please continue.
Yeah, sorry. So the primary question, like I said, was transportation cost for a private sector to look at even railway, to begin to look at, and that was the first question we had even as Prima. And so basically the broader model to be simplified, it is the cost of, say, we are bringing a flour bag from Trincomalee to a customer in Peta by a lorry, opposed to bringing a flour bag from the factory in Trincomalee to a particular hub closer to that customer, and then from that hub transporting it by road. So reducing the road transportation by about 70 to 80%. If you're looking at a 50-50 model, the likeliness of recovering that cost or meeting that cost reduces. So the closer you can bring the rail cargo to your customer is where the model works. So that is what my first point is in terms of how does it become cost effective? Because obviously the road transportation cost currently, based on the volumes you're going to bring, sorry, will be largely judged upon the total cost of from your factory to your customer. So that is number one. Second reason some companies also have looking into is the other factors like environmental concerns and also the policy of the company. Now, I believe Holcim had a policy back in the day where they want to reduce their carbon footprint. So that was a high priority for that was one of their KPIs. So because of that, that became one of the reasons for Holcim to invest in the rail transportation cost. So that is another factor where comes into place when it comes to going into rail transportation. Sorry. So the other factors that would probably play a role is, in terms of a national interest level is like Secretary Monty Ranthunga also explained, was the traffic congestions, environmental concerns, accidents. So all these factors also come into play, but this comes at a national level. A private sector is not going to look at this when they make an investment. Obviously, this becomes a national level benefit when you attract the private sector to come and make this investment. So I'll speak a little bit about the investment cost also, and at least the investment angle of things. So like I said, the first model of it's the door-to-door step thing. So when in the case of Prima, what happened was we have our factory in China Bay is close to the China Bay railway station. So it's only about less than 2 kilometers from the factory to the China Bay railway station. So our model is pretty much where we bring our containers by lorry for that 2 kilometers and load it from a reach stacker into the the lorries to the train at China Bay. Then our second problem was where do we come and unload these containers? Because we cannot unload it from the container. So it has to be loaded from the container to the lorry. Otherwise, the redistribution cost will be more. Meaning, like, for example, if you use BCG wagons, then individually we'll have to unload all the bags. So when you look at that cost, again, the cost model doesn't work, right? So we had, fortunately, in Sidua, our own property where we were just behind the Sidua rail station. So we had to invest on 2 rail tracks, 2 lines to come from the Sidua line into our premises in Sidua. So now what we do is we bring the cargo from Trincomalee to Sidua and redistribute from Sidua. So the investment cost roughly now in the current context, of course, I would say to do a rail yard that can, a hub that can, facilitate around 26 containers or 15 to 26, 26 containers. That's about 15 wagons, or between 13 and 15 wagons, could easily cost about 700 to 800 million in the current context of things. So my question is, how many private sectors would have that kind of volume and make that kind of investment to make it viable? So that's something railway also needs to consider in terms of the hubs that they're going to be looking at in forward. Is this cost factor that needs to be taken into account? Secondly, I'd like to touch on the experience itself. When private sector looks at railway, there's a very negative image. Meaning, I'm being very upfront, is a negative image. You will look at reliability. So that is one thing that always, when you look at railway, the public image of railways, okay, will they deliver? The reliability of railways, one of the key concerns that always come into play when it comes into investment aspects. So that's something that railway would need to work on and also improve on. Then you have all the government bureaucracies. I mean, for us to, for Prima to, get this project going, the agreement itself took 3 years to finalize. and we had to go through several ministers. We had to get cabinet approval. So there's a very long process of, getting these agreements sorted back in the day. I am hoping things have changed now, and there is some kind of improvement in terms of, back in the day, there was not much motivation to look at freight opposed to now. Obviously, you heard both the GMR and Secretary speak. There's a lot of positive outlook, and I can endorse that. Even when I go and meet them, I met them several times, they're always positively looking at, pushing our cargo through and, helping us with our problems. So there's definitely, over the last 10 years, I have seen a continuous improvement from railway side and also the transport ministry, right, in terms of getting the priorities right, in getting this logistics or getting this freight cargo moving, and also the priority of, trying to make this freight a more feasible thing for railway. So that is something that we can look forward to. But in terms of getting things done and the concern and the customer experience, the reliability part is something of a great concern that always comes into play. Another factor is also the infrastructure within railway itself. I mean, I'm talking about the staff infrastructures, the attitudes of staff. You will have a varied mix. My experience has been a varied mix. There are definitely people in railway that I have encountered over the years that have been very helpful and very forward thinking and try to push things. But at the same time, there are people who pull you back. One of the experiences I had is in terms of when you go and push this business through, the perception or the feeling you get from railways are they are doing a favor for us. Whereas that's not the case. I mean, I've actually told this to several railway employees also. I mean, we are giving you a business. You're not doing us a favor. So this mindset needs to be changed. And this is something that railway also can look at, where you get your teams to, look at this as a company. I mean, for example, if railway was a private company, then, they are looking at business. You can't say, okay, if it comes, it'll come. If it doesn't come, it doesn't come. So they have to change their mindset of thinking, look, this is going to be of interest to the company I work for, the organization I work for. So I need to work towards getting better business from this. So that is something that I've found very much in a lot of staff, and that is something that needs to change also within railway to, motivate the private sector. I mean, now when the private sector persons come and ask me, I always talk more positively, because over the years things have changed, and I think there was a lot of skepticism towards Prima actually succeeding in this. And actually, over the last, we have been running the logistics from April this year, and there's been only very few challenges that we have faced, whereas we had a higher contingency of failure in spite of the conditions we put. There has been a lot of push and a lot of encouragement, a lot of feedback from railway also to help Prima achieve its target. So that is something that is encouraging, and now that is something that we also talk about when private sector comes and talks. I mean, we do give the warning lines. I'm being very honest. There is nothing to hide about that. But at the same time, it is a positive thing to see that the railway also, there are good people who are going to be pushing these projects through. So it's a mix, and also you as a private sector, when you're working with organizations like that, you cannot send something and wait for reply. You have to follow through. You have to meet. You have to find other ways. I mean, GMR knows how many times we'll come putting meetings with him. If it doesn't work, we go with the secretary. We'll talk to the minister. So depending on the issues, we have to constantly have constant dialogues and constant meetings with all the past stakeholders involved to get things done. So those are some of the main concerns, and also at the same time, some of the feedback I can give in terms of what our experience has been with SLR and also the ministries in terms of getting these projects going. I mean, there are a lot of things that SLR also can do in terms of improving their side of things. I mean, still most of the communication happens on mail. When I say mail, I mean the postal mail. But now we have created dialogue with certain employees, and we use at least Gmails to communicate. So there's a lot of things that need to improve in regards to, the efficiencies within SLR itself to, make, today they only have 1 or 2 companies to work with, but if the private sector is going to keep, improving and coming in, and they have 10, 15 customers to deal with, then the infrastructure that is currently there, I don't know how effective it will be in addressing all these challenges. So that's something that SLR also needs to be looking into in terms of, how they can improve the infrastructure within their organization itself to cater to this kind of future demands that will come through. So that's in summary what I'd like to talk about. I'm sure there'll be more questions in terms of the experience itself. But all in all, if I just summarize in a nutshell, it has not been an easy road for us. I have been with this rail project from the beginning, which was almost in 2006-07 when we started dialogue. Even before that, there was dialogue, but I took this project over in 2006, and it took so many years to get this going, so many feasibility studies, so many meetings. I'm talking about hundreds of meetings to get this moving, and it has not always been an easy road, but I have definitely seen improvement happening. And if the priorities are not set right to actually get freight moving in Sri Lanka, we'll be probably having the same conversation in the next 25 years if we have a conference like this. So, I mean, it's time to change. And I think Prima has given a great opportunity to SLR by, making that, taking that risk of investing investing in this way, and actually succeedingly carrying out so far this project for the last 8 months. So it should be a positive vibe for the other private sectors who are looking, because now they actually have an example to come and look at, because this is the first time finished goods have been transported and distributed from a private sector company in this kind of volume. So we are a model for other companies to follow also, and we are always sharing our experience. And so with that, I'd like to conclude my presentation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sil. Yeah, probably these are the things that we don't see in numbers, but probably the results, obviously, we might be seeing the impact of this from the numbers. Okay, anyways, with that, we will welcome thank you very much, Mr. Sil, again. Hopefully we can have a bit more discussion during the panel. Let's now move to hear from another customer. Customer is the most important, Mr. Vatsara Vedage, who is an core expert from Siam City, Thailand, which is a cement manufacturing firm who are already using freight transport to a great extent. Mr. Vatsara Silla will enlighten what they are looking forward to. Over to you, Mr. Vatsara Vedage. Sorry.
A very good day to you all, ladies and gentlemen. It's my high privilege and honor to share my experiences in managing the railway operations of Siam City Cement Lanka Limited for today's discussions on improving the freight footprint in Sri Lanka. I'm Vatsara Vedage, quarry expert of Siam City Cement Lanka Limited. I was in charge of the railway operations since 2012 to 2020 before taking over this regional position. When it comes to Siam City Cement Lanka Limited, we are the only integrated cement plant in the country operating in Puttlam. And we have 2 grinding stations in Galle operating near the harbour from producing cement from imported clinker. And we have a terminal in Colombo harbour. And our markets are roughly about 40% of the total cement market in the country, concentrated in the urban areas. The other main cement competitor is Tokyo Cement, operating from Trincomalee, and they have a terminal in the Colombo harbour also. All the other cement players like Ultratech, Hasti, they have their cement terminals in the Colombo Harbour. This is where the main market is currently, in Colombo, in Kandy, and in the southern areas. Looking at the railway network and where the cement plants are being located shows itself how the railway logistics is knitted into the cement industry. Country's first cement plant, which was opened in the 1950s in Kankasanture, operated till 1990s and currently being stripped down, was sitting on the limestone deposit, which is the main raw material for the cement manufacturing in Kankasanture. The markets were far down. So the policymakers those days decided to locate, build cement plants more close to the market. That is, they started the grinding station in Galle to cater the southern market, and looking at the raw material reserve, locating Aruwakkaru as the raw material source for the cement plant in Puttlam. They built this Puttlam cement plant in 1960s at the southernmost tip of the limestone deposit that is coming from Jaffna. But still again, the cement markets were in Colombo, Kandy, and other areas. The Puttlam cement plant, where I have been working for the last decade or so, was built based on a rail-based logistics model. Even the Kankasanture cement plant is likewise. The cement going to the market was going by rail wagons. There were rail networks within the plant to have the cement bags getting directly into the railway wagons. There were rail lines to the bulk storages to bring down all the clinker and gypsum coming from Colombo Harbour to the bulk storages in the Puttlam plant. Unfortunately, everything is now road-based. Our finished goods are going to the market by trucks. Clinker is coming from Colombo, Hambantota, and Trincomalee by trucks. We are having a large consumption of coal coming in bulk from by trucks coming from Trincomalee and Hambantota, gypsum coming from Colombo Harbour. So there are a lot of trucks bringing material to the plant and taking out bulk and bag cement from the Puttlam plant. But due to the unique nature of the Puttlam plant, where the quarry is dislocated from the main plant, elsewhere in the world it's not like that. The quarry and the plant are situated next to each other. In Sri Lanka, we have Aruwakkaru providing limestone, which is 40 kilometers away from the cement plant. This 40 kilometers is linked by a railway line, which is a unique income source for Sri Lanka Railways as of now. This 40-kilometer rail track is being operated by CM City Cement Lanka Limited, where we have two mainline locomotives, the diesel hydraulic sand locomotive and the diesel electric WDM6 locomotive, about 120 rolling stock wagons, tippler wagons, which we can turn upside down to unload the limestone coming from the quarry, 3 brake vans, 33 kilometers of own operated rail track, owned and fully maintained by the company. We have 5 bridges on the Mioya in this rail track. And likewise, there's a heavy lot of equipment, people operating this railway operations to bring down the limestone from the quarry. The quarry, which is 40 kilometers away from the Puttlam cement plant, is linked with the passenger line at Pahlavi, going through Puttlam to Noornagar. In 1998, the company, after privatization from Sri Lanka Cement Corporation, wanted to strengthen the raw material supply to increase the cement production and the clinker production at the plant. So firstly, there was a track lease agreement where the company took over the operations of the 33-kilometer line from Kori to Noornagar, and Sri Lanka Railways provided passage from Noornagar to Pahlavi station via Putlam and provided facilitation for train passing each to other. This is a 24-hour operation, so our trains are running day and night, and we needed to operate Karantipur station in between to provide train passage to exchange the trains in between. With this, the company invested for the second locomotive, the diesel hydraulic sand locomotive, in 2010, and ever since, the company has been working hard to strive to improve the rail-based logistics operations. But seeing the pushing it to the corners of limits of the operation, currently about 60 to 70,000 of limestone is being transported to the plant by road also. This is kind of a situation which we need to analyze, why rail-based logistics, having had the foundation for the rail cement plant operations, is slowly moving away from it. The income generated by the cement plant operations in Pahlavi is not purely by the rail track lease. We are hiring locomotives from Sri Lanka Railways when our locomotives are down. We are getting services from the railway workshops. They are having a very large workshop with big potential capacity to cater the industry needs. And we are operating current fuel station, hiring brake vans, and hiring retired SLR staff to operate our trains. With all these, I thought of putting it in a management perspective, where the 7 P's of marketing is matching to describe the customer perspectives as what I see from the customer end. The product what SLR is offering is either the passenger or the cargo services. Passenger services, yes, it's more of a service. It's not profit making, but to manage the recurring expenses and the capital expenditures of the industry, Sri Lanka Railways has to enhance their cargo handling capacity and to do the freight logistics. This is no doubt the case. The price, of course, the price is affordable. That is the hierarchy of logistics. It is more economical if you go for barge, water-based transportation, but on land, the most economical transportation mode is undoubtedly the rail. It eliminates the road traffic, it eliminates the carbon emissions. So the total cost of rail freight logistics is minimum, with having very minimum social costs also. But for the investor, but for the companies that are looking at going for rail-based logistics, their total cost should also come down, not purely on transporting from point A to B. But there are several points of loading, unloading, and rehandling, which incurs costs, which causes damages, which causes contamination to the finished products. As I said before, we had a rail network within the plant so that the packing plant can directly put the bag into the rail wagons. Now the case is not like that. We have to bring the rail, we have to bring the cement bags to the rail wagon, and then the rail wagon will take it to a distant station, and it has to be transferred to a truck to go to the market. Looking at the railway network, if we have access to a rail line, or if we have access to rail cargo systems, it can distribute the things to quite a wide market segment, to a wide market area. This links, the price links with the place where the rail network is and bringing down the rehandling costs. So the availability of the rail facilities brings down the cargo costs and the rehandling costs. And the most important aspect of this service-oriented service orientation is that changing the mindset of the people involved in the organization. Within the department also, there are several sub-departments which we see are not collaborating each to other. The service mentality has to be developed to attract more customers and to give a better service. Promotion, in the sense, the capacities of the railway is not known to many. They have a large land area. They have very good storage facilities in key locations. They have nighttime track availability for to be used. With all these, the right kind of promotion is not being done. Cargo, in the sense, not all these small parcels, but for bulk, large material, the facilities should be available for providing safety, security, and the traceability in the process. And these should be promoted for the small and medium scale entrepreneurs, industries in the country. A lot of trucks coming from Mahianganaya, Polonnaruwa bringing sand. All these can be rail bounded if the right setup is being applied. The bottlenecks here, as I see, is the environmental concerns, the spillages, the dust emissions, and the nature of goods that are being transported. If we take the farmers in the Central Hills, the right kind of setup is not there to preserve these perishable material until it can be transported to the markets in Colombo area and to distribute it from the railway warehouses. In India, they are investing on rail tracks. There are heavy capital investments done to upgrade the rail tracks to enable 160 kmph. That is required in India because the cities are so very apart. They need to transport goods very quickly before the items are getting perished while being transferred. But in Sri Lanka, that is not the case. Within the time span of 10 to 15 hours maximum, the farmers can bring the products to the market by rail if the right setup is there and it is facilitating the farmers. And an important part of the improving the footprint is to have the physical evidence of having the right kind of warehouses, equipments, and yards to handle the cargo in the bulk form and in an environmentally friendly manner where the neighborhood is not complaining. Having the right kind of land resources and space, but still the conflicting from the pollution and the interests of the public against material spillage and dust and noise and pollution kind of things have to be addressed to enable more freight logistics. With this, I wish to conclude my presentation here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Vatsara Vedage. So that is the customer's voice we just listened to. And we of course have a few more customers lined up who will express their voice during the panel discussion. For the time being, we have a quick message from our sponsors. After that, we'll move to another speak.
Siam City Cement entered the Sri Lankan market and established itself as the only fully integrated cement manufacturer in the country, and markets its product brands as ICLSE Cement. We are the only local producer of cement in Sri Lanka. Founded in 1969 in Thailand, Siam City Cement is a supplier of cement, aggregates, and construction solutions. We have the largest cement manufacturing complex in the world in Saraburi. Today, Siam City Cement is present in 5 countries across Asia, including Sri Lanka, Cambodia, Indonesia, Bangladesh, and Vietnam. ICLSE Cement operates 2 plants in Putlam and Galle, and 2 terminals in the Colombo Port and the Galle Port, offering fresh cement consistent in quality to the market. We have a large asset footprint in Sri Lanka and continue to be the market leader. We place safety as our #1 priority for all our operational and business decisions. We aim for health and safety excellence through many world benchmarks and innovative solutions. ICLSE Cement is the technical partner for the National Safety Awards conducted by the National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health. We have also developed a safety officer development program for the first time in Sri Lanka together with them. We are committed to supporting a long-term national road safety program. With an island-wide distribution channel and a dealer network of 7,000 partners that has maintained long-lasting relationships with the organization. ICLSE Cement's strong customer-centric policy has led ICLSE Cement to establish a customer relationship management center to better serve clients. Constantly at the forefront of innovation, ICLSE Cement has also established a dedicated innovation and application center, mobile lab, and a center of excellence. ICLSE Cement serves the retail and B2B segments with a range of application-based cement variants. Is a unique affordable housing program. ICLSE Cement collaborates with a microfinance company to support the low-income individual house builders who represent the bottom of the pyramid. ICLSE technical officers are mobilized throughout the island to provide on-site technical assistance to the builder. ICLSE Samstha, ICLSE Extra, ICLSE Rapid Plus are emission-controlled green cements, which are the first green cement products in Sri Lanka. These products emit 7 kilos less carbon dioxide gas than any cement bag in the market. Ensuring sustainable practices, ICLSE Cement controls emissions through the Blue Sky project, which minimizes emissions at manufacturing plants. Over 80 hectares of forests have been grown under quarry rehabilitation initiatives, and ICLSE Cement has entered an agreement with IUCN for the conservation of wildlife in quarry areas. To reduce our carbon footprint and minimize the risk on the road, we have moved our transport from road to rail, saving 3.9 million road kilometers per year. ICLSE is proud to have constructed the first ever green preschool in Galle, which received a Gold Award from the Ceylon Institute of Builders. ICLSE villages have been constructed to house communities surrounding manufacturing plants, and we currently have 4 ICLSE villages benefiting over 200 households. As part of our contribution to national heritage, ICLSE Cement has pledged to renovate heritage railway stations. In Galle, ICLSE is proud to have renovated the Galle Dutch Library, which was founded in 1832. It is the oldest library in Sri Lanka and has a repository of over 7,000 books. ICLSE EcoCycle is the waste management arm of Siam City Cement, currently represented in 4 countries. INSEE EcoCycle in Thailand has the largest pre-processing facility. INSEE EcoCycle offers waste management services for industries and serves over 400 clients in Sri Lanka. 1/3 of our energy requirement is replaced by alternative energy sources through INSEE EcoCycle's waste to energy solution. INSEE Cement has invested heavily on learning and development through a number of initiatives, in addition to placements in group companies. INSEE Academy provides employees the opportunity to further their expertise with recognized certifications. The EVE Center is established to enrich the community by providing vocational training with a highly recognized NVQ qualification. INSEE Awards is a program to recognize outstanding employee achievements annually. INSEE promotes health and fitness among all its employees. INSEE Cement has received many laurels over the years in a number of spheres. INSEE Cement will continue to invest in its local operations, R&D, and technology improvements to build the future of Sri Lanka. INSEE Cement has partnered many iconic projects across the world and in Sri Lanka, contributing to the national resurgence and building the future. INSEE Cement, building brighter futures.
Okay, with this message, we are now moving to hear from the best practices. We've been listening to the local context and what our ambitions are. So I'm sure we can get many positives from Europe, what they've been doing. So with that note, I would invite Dr. Philip Tretton, who is an associate professor of Luleå University of Technology, who will give us some insights about the advancements in railway infrastructure asset management, and little bit also about the Europe model. How does the freight collaboration work among different parties? He is basically representing the Luleå Railway Research Center, Sweden. Dr. Tretton, over to you.
Thank you. Can I share my screen here? Yeah, good.
You can please, yeah.
Yes, thank you, everybody. I'm going to talk a little bit about advancements in railway infrastructure management, and this is results of a research project we had, an European railway project between Norway, Finland, Russia, and Sweden. Let me see, I need to switch screens. There we go. Is that better now?
Perfect, Philip, yeah.
Oh, okay, thank you. I don't know if everybody knows where Sweden is. That's the top of Europe, and where we come from is actually right here. And do you see my mouse?
We do. We all are following Luleå.
Yeah, okay. And the railway line goes actually basically above the Arctic Circle here. But it starts in Luleå and then goes up to Kiruna and over to Norway. And that's what we'll be talking about. But our group that I work with, the Division of Operation and Maintenance Engineering, we have a research center for railway that we work together with infrastructure owners and operators. And we also have a research center for other maintenance and industrial services. And within that, we're split up in a few different groups. And here's a little picture of us from a few years ago. Here's Prashana, just so you know. The outline of my talk is I'll give a little bit about the bottlenecks that we face today, and then an overview of different capacity increasing measures that we're working on up here. Payload increasing measures, speed of trains, RTMS, I'll talk about that, and then security and coming improvements. The challenge we have today is actually, the biggest challenge we have is this. It is to transport iron ore pellets and now coming iron ore mushrooms to get them to the harbors. And because, like I showed in the picture a few slides ago, it's transported from the center of northern Sweden to the harbors of Norway, to the harbor in Luleå. And what we need to do is we need to increase the axle load and the total train weight on that infrastructure we have. And the infrastructure we have actually comes from the late 1800s in the beginning. So there have been continuous improvements through the years. And that leads to the bottlenecks that we have today. You have old and new mixed. We have track that's, you know, the latest improvements were done 1987, and we have some that are, you know, done continually every year. Another bottleneck we have, as you see in the picture here, is that you have derailments in the middle of nowhere. So it's difficult to get through the places, especially during the winter and bad weather. And, you know, we don't have a double track, you know, to reroute the trains, you know, past that. And so it stops the traffic. And sometimes it can be even during longer periods of time. Our bridges are old. I mean, they're 50 years old. Many of the bridges, you know, we have to, you know, verify their strength and increase the lifetime of those. And we also have something I haven't mentioned, is that we have extremes in weather. We can have up to minus 50 degrees Celsius on the cold side, and then up to 40 degrees Celsius on the warm side. Somebody's speakers on, it probably should be, their microphone is on, should probably be muted. And then we have capacity issues. And another thing is the contracts. What different contracts are available here? You know, what do the different operators have for a contract? You know, even the maintenance contracts. And this picture I'm showing you here is of a recent derailment, and that's based upon the maintenance contracts. Even though maintenance was supposed to be done over a year ago in this section, things in the contract were unclear. So the maintenance operator in this section didn't need to do it, even though they were told to do it. But they didn't, you know, break their contract either by not doing it, because they were able to, you know, find different ways to explain and show that they did the right thing in waiting on taking care of some of these maintenance issues. When we talk about capacity increasing measures, I'll give you a little background. Here's the train that operates every day, 10 times a day in one direction, all right, two directions, and several times a day in other directions to Norway. And what we're trying to do is increase the safety of the railway network. And one thing that it's gonna happen is implementing a new signal system, the European Railway Traffic Management System, as opposed to the old system, which is the automatic ATP, Automatic Train Protection System. We are going to increase the iron load ore. You know, we are going to increase the axle load from 31 to 40 tons. We need to add more parallel movement facilities, not double track, but that's a dream. But we're adding small sections, I'll show you in a little bit. And then also to be able to increase the speed of, you know, empty trains, you know, loaded trains, and even add automatic operation of trains. And another thing, because when you add this, you know, automation, when you add these different, you know, digitalized measures, you also have to think about cybersecurity. The European Railway Traffic Management System, which is being tested on one section in another part of Sweden, will replace the automatic train protection system that's being used today. And one thing about this is that instead of using the infrastructure to communicate, it uses GSM-R communication with the train. So you can do other types of communication to the system directly speaking through that, communicating through that, but also you actual status of the train, actual speed, communicating in real time. There are 3 different levels, and the level that Sweden is taking for this section is the level 2, and they're going to implement it in several different levels, dates. And level 2 is the most complete system, and it talks about how there will be no more trackside signals, and everything is authorized through the GSM-R train position. So there's different things, there's different databases connected to that. So it's all, over the network, the air networks. Another key factor that we're working on is cooperation, between the infrastructure owners and track operators. One example of this is what has happened in Kiruna. If you see this mine here, it's now underground mine, and this section of track right here is new. And what it is, the mining company financed this section of track because the old section that went this direction had to be, I guess, removed, or not removed, but anyways, taken out of use, because the mine is going under the track and causing, cracks and other problems. But it was that they financed it. The mining company financed this for the infrastructure owner. And that's one thing with cooperation, to get it done quicker, to make these changes done at a faster rate, and payoffs are done in a different way. We also collaborate in research, and even large investments. There's more of a cooperation. And another thing is new trains. How do we develop and do the new trains? We work together and cooperate, developing and testing, and reinforce and improving the infrastructure in different ways. For example, the mine owner has paid for different condition monitoring solutions to get them online quicker and use them. And we've been using that at the university in developing different tools for that, and even startups have started from that cooperation. And signal systems. Here's an example of one research work that has been done, just focusing on this, increasing the weight of the trains on this track section. The iron ore payload increases, demand new wagons. That we have the 31-ton axle load today, but we can put more, iron ore pellets and fines in these wagons. But we need to increase the track up to 32.5 tons. And some sections are approved for it, others aren't. All the bridges today are certified. Almost all the bridges are certified. In one direction, they're certified for 32.5 tons. There are a few that aren't certified yet, but we're working on that at the university. And even train, the sleepers, the ballast, the bridges, the culverts all need to be tested and reinforced in different ways. And this has been done in a collaboration with research, with the infrastructure owners and with the operators, and even setting up a replacement plan. One section here is 32.5 tons from Narvik to Luleå is the goal. But then even a much longer goal, time plans of 35.5 ton. Today, we only use 2 trains that run from Kiruna to Narvik to Norway that are 32.5 tons as tests, until the Norwegian side, has tested, finished their tests and allow us to do all the trains in that direction. So it's a complexity here. You have one player, the Swedish side, the Swedish infrastructure owner says, okay, now it's okay. But now we have the Norwegian side that has to finish their tests and certify it. Even though the remaining trains are at 30 tons, we have to increase it. But there are different things that, because it increases demands of the welds, the rail, the sleepers, the fasteners, because things wear faster when you have a heavier train. Another thing is double track. We've done some tests here, simulations, to see what we can do to add. If you look on this section here, two little green sections, these are two bottlenecks here that are between, this is Luleå, Sweden, and this is the harbor in Narvik. So from Kiruna to Narvik, if we add two sections here and make them double track, they're actually not too big of a sections, we can get over 4.4 hour, improvement or decreased travel time by doing that total. And stuff like that we're seeing. Where do we can add relatively, small investment to get, a greater, capacity increasing measures, There are different opportunities on maintenance. We're working on onboard monitoring systems, special measurement cars, and even wayside monitoring stations, testing different things to be able to monitor in different ways to quickly, find potential problems and deal with them. The ETRMS, we think, and they promise a 40% increased capacity. I doubt that. But what it does add, it's shorter safety zones between trains. We can have trains running closer together. We can increase the speed of the trains and be even safer. We think we can have a 10-kilometer-an-hour increase on all the iron ore trains, both empty and loaded, without adding, specific wear on certain areas. We course on certain curves, we probably should go a little bit slower, but that's something we also need to study more. And we can definitely add more trains on the track. And we have even better ways to optimize our scheduling. Cybersecurity is another thing. Cyber attacks are increasing. There are threats to safety and threats to security. And, there's different things we need to look at, the connectivity of the trains, the supply chain, all these things can be affected negatively by a cyber attack. So we need to be even better and safer in that. And the coming improvements for this section of train, I think would be good for even Sri Lanka to look into, is that, the signal system, what signal system to use, and what can you, do to implement a signal system that increases the capacity of the system, and even give you better condition monitoring of the trains and the track. Double track is what we need for the whole area, but we're adding sections of double track. At least increase to 32.5 ton axle load on all tracks. Increase the standard speed. Add fencing on both sides of the track to keep animals and people off the track, which makes it safer, and we can run trains even faster speeds. And then add passenger trains that fulfill the requirements. They don't fulfill the requirements today. So that's a few of the things that we're working on. Thank you very much.
Philip, would you mind stopping sharing?
Yes. Actually, you can take it away from me. You're the big guy.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Philip, for that very interesting talk. I think something that was very attractive for the entire audience was like how nicely one could generate a huge benefit by such a relatively small investment. That was pretty interesting. Thank you very much, Philip, again. Hopefully we can have a bit more enlightenment on these matters during the panel discussion. So yeah, with that, I would invite another speaker from Sweden, this beautiful city of Luleå again, Dr. Mattias Asplund, who is a PhD holder in operations and maintenance, as well as having years of experience, industrial experience with traffic worker, which is the transport administration, as a senior track expert, who will talk a little bit along the same lines what Philip spoke, but in more from a customer's perspective. Over to you, Mattias, please.
Oh, thank you. I tried to share my screen, but I'm not allowed to do that for some reason.
Now should be able to, Matthias. I just allowed you. I was sharing my screen.
Okay, thank you.
Now it should work. We do see your screen now.
Do you see the right screen now?
We can see the see the red screen. Yes.
Okay, sounds good. All right. Thank you. I will start my presentation. Then I have to organize my windows here. Give me some seconds. Thank you. Okay, thank you for inviting me to this workshop of enhancing railway freight footprint in Sri Lanka. I'm very grateful to be invited, and I hope I can be able to give you some instant information about the Europe and the Sweden model of how we collaborate with the freight rolling stock company. I will speak, or I will be more concentrated in the technical side of railway and how this can be improved in a way of collaboration with rolling stock operators, but also with other partners. The outline of this presentation are, I will have some word about me, some word about the Sweden and Luleå, where I'm located, some information of the Trafikverket, that is the infrastructure manager in Sweden, some collaboration in terms of technical development, and some product that we have developed together in such kind of collaborations, and some word about the financing of this kind of collaboration. As you saw in the front page, my name is Matthias Asplund, and I have done my PhD in condition monitoring in Luleå University of Technology, 2016. And here is my dissertation. And the head, this was about the wayside condition monitoring system for railway wheels, wheel profile, and the application and performance assessment of this. And you can find this if you search on the internet. Now I work as a senior technical expert in Sweden with responsibility for the track system, but also for the track components. I'm also managing many types of development projects in Sweden and also in Europe. And a little bit about Sweden and where I'm located and so on. And I think we had already some information regarding that, but I'm located in Europe, and Europe in the northern part of Europe, and you see the Arctic Circle. And as we saw in the presentation before mine, the Luleå is, we take Sweden first. The Sweden is about 10 million people. The capital city is Stockholm in the southern part of Sweden. And the land area is about 450 square kilometer. It's about 6 times larger than Sri Lanka, if I understood this right. And then we have the city of Luleå. I'm located there. I have my office in Trafikverket also in Luleå, and there is about 80,000 people, and the climate is quite cold, -40 to +30 at the summer, and the snow is deep of about 1.2 meter on the winter. But the Swedish Transport Administration, we cooperate, the cooperation is fundamental in everything what we do. Together with the organizations, with other organizations, we change and develop Sweden together. We are working in the working environmental. The cooperation manifests itself in a positive and open working climate, characterizing mutual respect. We work in teams and learn from each other, since together we achieve more. That includes everything. That includes everything what we do in Trafikverket. And Trafikverket, the Swedish Transport Administration, have about now 9,000 employees. I have to start to tell before I start with that the railway is deregulated in Sweden. All companies can apply for time on track. That's important to know. This is not only government companies, but it's all companies that can apply time on track. In Sweden, in the Swedish Transport Administration, there is 150 different professionals, like a project manager in investment, in maintenance, special technical areas like a track, like a catenary system and so on, and signaling system. There is also information and communications people, traffic management of rail and roads, the special planning and the road ferries. The business volume is about $0.5 billion each year, and this is for all traffic modes. And we have the infrastructure for railway is about 14,000 kilometers of track, single track and double track. There is 525 stations. We have switches and crossings 11,000. We have 4,000 bridges and 165 tunnels. The longest railway bridge is in close to Stockholm, 2,038 meters. And the longest tunnel is in the southern part of Sweden is Hallandsås tunnel, 8,733 meters. And the transportation of the freight is more than 20 million ton kilometers each year. And what we can see that this is continuously increasing for each year, but not so fast. The collaboration. Regarding the collaboration, I will speak a little bit about the collaboration. We have the collaboration in between the operation of the infrastructure. As I mentioned, you can buy time on track for operating, and we call it train plane. I will explain it a little bit later. We have collaboration with the maintenance of infrastructure. I will not go too deep in that. And we have also development of the infrastructure together, but I will go a little bit more in that area. As I mentioned, we have the train plane, and the train plane for next year, 2022, there is 56 companies that apply for time on track. And this number of positions on track is 12,662. And the number of works that will be performed during this year is almost 1,700. We have two different types of maintenance contractors. General, that's type of maintenance and operation for daily base. And then the more special types of maintenance, like I mentioned, grinding of rails here, but there is a lot of other types also. And then we have also the collaboration in when we develop our infrastructure by research, by universities, or by the private companies, but also by Trafikverket. And we have a lot of big projects like Shift Rail and Europe's Rail. I will go a little bit deeper in that later in the presentation. I will show some collaboration with two different freight operators, LKAB, that already was mentioned by Philip, and then Green Cargo, that also another big operator of cargo in Sweden. The mining company is operating in the northern part of Sweden. As the map shows, there is two loops, northern loop and southern loop. If you see in the small picture here, you can see that the mine 1 and harbor 1 is a connection, and we call it northern loop. And then we have mine 2 and the harbor 2 have a connection, and we call it southern loop. The owner, LKAB, have 70 trains, 11,150 wagons, and each train have a length of 750 meters. They pull these locomotives with these trains with the Euro locomotives with 68 wagons on each train, and they have own workshops where they do every type of maintenance. Let's go to the project that we have in collaboration with LKAB. We have since 2011 a wheel profile measurement equipment in the southern loop that was a start as a research project together with Trafikverket, LKAB, and Luleå University of Technology. Now we will install a new one in the northern loop during 2022, and this will be a regular checkpoint or wayside equipment in our wayside equipment fleet that we have in Trafikverket. And in the middle of this picture, we have a collaboration of rail profiles. We develop new rail profiles, and we have also collaborations of wheel profiles. And then I will show you a little bit about Green Cargo and the freight company, established 2001, owned by the government, is 1,800 employees, operate in the northern countries, Denmark, Sweden, and Norway, 360 locomotives, 5,000 wagons, and a lot, and then have also rental wagons. The collaboration with them, we are developing a new automatic couple that will increase the performance of the availability of these vehicles and less human activities on the track. We have also developed the new rules for how we operate with wheel defects, and also develop different types of wheel wayside monitoring system. And also just now we are mapping the wheel defects during this summer. We have other type of collaborations like product development and riding comfort for better stability. I will give some words about that. At the left-hand side here, you see the replaceable rail head, and these are just now in the test, the version 2.0 test in Trafikverket's infrastructure, and with good results. We have a novel track construction, a hybrid track. This is not the ballast track or not the slab track, but this is something in between, and these are developed in a European project, and this will be able for the high-speed trains, but also trains up to 32.5 tons axle load, and this will be mounted on track 2020. And then we have the lindometer that finds fastenings that are loosed, and this will be demonstrated also in train during the next year. We have also the collaboration with passenger rolling stock operators, and here we have instrumented vehicles that measure the comfort continuously online, and we monitor also the wheel and rail and the track alignment. This is improvement of the comfort for vehicles with higher speed than 160 km/h. And we have also a new measure from this project called GIP that's shown when we need to go and reprofile the wheel and rail due to bad comfort. And there is two different concepts. On the left-hand side, this is a vehicle with softer bogie, and the right-hand side you see with the stiffer bogie. And how do we finance this? We have our own budget in Trafikverket. We have also collaboration in Europe, Shift Rail, Europe's Rail, and we have some private companies that also are engaged with us in money, but not so much. And if you want to know more, there is a reference you can go and read, and thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Asplund, for that insightful talk, particularly like how nicely the collaborations happen between the operators, the mining companies, and the infrastructure maintenance organization. That was quite impressive. Hopefully we can hear a bit more during the panel discussion. Thank you very much, Matthias, again. Let's have a word during the panel discussion again, hopefully. With that note, let's move further west. We have a speaker from Texas, USA, Dr. Krishna Jha. who's going to talk us about the efficient using the rail networks with constraints, how one can utilize the rail network. A case from USA. Dr. Jha, over to you.
Thank you, Prasanna. Thank you. Good afternoon or good evening, everyone. Can you hear me well?
We do hear you well. Yeah.
Okay. There may be some background noise because I am at home. So if that is the case, please pardon me. Let me share my screen and we'll talk about that case study. Can you see my screen? Can you please confirm?
We see the screen nicely. Yeah, please.
So I talk only around 10 minutes, and the way I understood the topic to understand that how the infrastructure can be used more efficiently. And this has been an interesting journey in United States in 30-40 years. So I thought that gives some perspective in that direction. So my name is Krishna Jha. I am in USA working for a company called Optim, and we have been in the rail domain, mainly optimization driven software development. So we develop software which has optimization components either in the planning or execution or analytics, and that serve to different rail loads. So you can this slides give some examples of the kind of solutions we develop, and then different rail loads. These are all the rail loads they are using them. So what happened in USA in 80s, they deregulated the railroad industry. And in that context, in USA and Canada, the 7 big players came in picture. They combined together, they have around 160,000 miles of tracks, and they operate mostly the freight trains. There is very minimal passenger trains moving in the United States or Canada, but you can think of primarily as a freight operations happening across the United States and Canada using rail. So these 7 companies combined, they have a combined revenue of around $80 billion per year. That's a big. Some big railroads, as for example, Union Pacific or BNSF, they have 30-40,000 miles of tracks on which they operate their trains. And along with that, there are hundreds of what they call a small railroads, class 2 and class 3 railroads. So that's the context in which these operations happen. So historically, before deregulations, they have some restrictions in which they are working, and they are not so focused on the efficiency. The reason was that the way it was structured, that they always make some profit, there is some cost, there is some pricing regulations. So there's not much room to be competitive or improve the efficiency. But after deregulation, that scenario changed. And that motivated them to shift their operations to use the infrastructure or their assets more efficiently. To do that, what they did, earlier they used to have all the operations in the tonnage based. I'm not sure about Sri Lanka, but for example, Indian Railway or some other railroads, they have tonnage based railroading. What it means that a customer ordered the full train and then railroad move that train from point A to point B. So there is no fixed schedule. You get the order, you build the train, and then you move the train on the network. The good part with that is that you have good profitability. There's the most profitable operation in terms of how we are doing things. But bad part is that you cannot do much because your assets are not used properly. It means that assets, what I mean by tracks, locomotives, crews, yards, all those kind of things, they may be idle. Some places they are used more, some places they are used less. They are maybe sitting idle. So that's not the best operations they had. So they shifted their operations gradually and come to the mixed mode where they started doing a scheduled railroad operations. A schedule means that for the freight trains, they create the schedule saying that they are the trains going to depart. Everyone in the railroad knows that this train is to depart from this place is supposed to carry the rail cars going to certain destinations, and there can be one or more destinations on the way. And what should happen on the way, which locomotives should be assigned, which crew should be there, and then it's kind of a schedule. If you fly by airline, they have similar kind of operations. They have flight schedule, and then passengers are accommodated on those according to that schedule. What happened because of that, their profitability jumped from, say, somewhere they used to have 10%, 15% profitability, that started 30, 35% of probability they can realize because of this scheduled movement. Their locomotives are scheduled. It means that know that how the locomotives is going to be used in the future. They line up the locomotive accordingly at the terminals. They know which customer orders to take and how much commitment to give to them, so they can give the rail cars, they can move the rail car on the network. They know how the track maintenance should be done so that a scheduled railroad operations do not hamper. So all these factors combined together, that created huge benefit for them. Then there was a person called Hunter Harrison. He is very well known in the railroad industry in the USA for that transition, for that kind of innovation that he brought in how the railroad should be using the assets. It's very popular saying that he is the person who used to see from his office window and then see if any locomotive is sitting idle. He used to question that why this locomotive is sitting idle and not moving the trains. So he brought that kind of mindset in the railroad efficiency. But then they didn't stop there. The problem with this model was that they have a schedule, which is generally weekly schedule, where they know which trains to be formed and on which dates. Suppose they run the train every 7 days, all 7 days, then they have a same schedule for 7 days. Or if they run some trains on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, they run some trains on only over the weekend. So that's the way that the schedule is created. Problem with that model was that if the customer order is not there, it means if they cannot get the order which can make the train long, they used to run the trains. So you have trains which are running, but they are shorter trains. At the same time, if you get the more customer orders than it is supposed to be, then they run the extra trains. So that creates some inefficiency in the system. That motivated railroads, and where they are working now very heavily, you might be hearing, a schedule railroading is saying that all the assets, rail tracks, your assets, your crew, your yards, that should be most efficiently used. To do that, what do you need? You need that every locomotive should be pulling the trains at the maximum capacity. So it means you should run the long trains. You should not run the short trains. If you can run the long trains using the same locomotive, you can run more trains in the network. And if you can run the more trains in the network within the same infrastructure, you can have more revenue, and then you can have more profit. That's the things. To make that happen, they're going by dated schedules. It's not saying that Friday, Sunday, we are going to run these trains. That's the schedule. On December 19th, that schedule may be different. On December 20th, that schedule may be different. And then they consolidate the traffic such a way that they always create long trains with minimum stop, and that train runs fast. So as a case study, what they did, if you are aware with the map of Canada, they have long east-west corridor. So from Vancouver in the west to Toronto in the east, it's around 3,000 miles. One railroad used to have a scheduled train running on that line, taking 5 days, almost 5 days to go from one end to other end. Because of precision scheduled railroading, what they could achieve, they could reduce the running time of that train from 5 days to 3 days by just optimizing that where the train should stop, how it should move, what kind of power should be there, power means locomotive should be there, and how to run so that the train can maintain the speed. There's not much stoppage, there's not much meter pass planning, meet and pass stoppage, and those kind of things should happen. So that you can imagine that gives for one train 40% efficiency improvement. And if you can multiply that, that is the huge improvement network wide. So now recently, if you see the last year or this year, they have started achieving around 60% of operating ratio. It means that every train they move, they get 40% in their profit. And that's they want to that's where they want to go. Even the biggest railroad, BNSF railway, which is the largest right now, Union Pacific, they are all heavily investing on how to run the precision schedule railroading. For that, they bring the experts who have proven that there's a lot of expertise, roller expertise needed. They are bringing that. They are bringing technology, optimization driven softwares like what we develop and provide. Data driven decision making system, which is, for example, digital twin is a heavy investment in cities by different railroads, where they want to have the virtual railroad operating, so that in the real time they can assess that what is going on and they can make decision based on that. So infrastructure is a huge setup here in the United States in the terms of railroad. Using the same setup, using the same locomotives, using the same customer base, they could change the operating practices, just the operating practices, how they run. They can achieve 20-30% profitability growth in that network, while increasing number of trains and doing faster and better services. That's pretty much I wanted to convey in this talk. If you have any question, please feel free to ask me. Really happy to answer that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That interesting talk, particularly like how the conversion happened from demand based to utilization based model. I think that's a good learning even for Sri Lanka. Well, with the time restriction, I suggest we will move to the next speaker. By the way, Dr. Jaya, are you in a position to be there for the panel?
I can stay for some time.
Okay, please. Hopefully we can join you for the panel. Okay, with that, without a further delay, we will listen to the last speaker, then we will move to the panel. Our last speaker is Dr. Navaratna Raja from the Department of Civil Engineering, University of Peradeniya, who will talk us a little bit about the railway infrastructure issues and the novel solutions. Over to you, Dr. Nava.
Good day to everyone. I'm Dr. Navaratna Raja at the Department of Civil Engineering, University of Peradeniya, Sri Lanka. Today I'm going to present our research study on railway infrastructure issues and solutions. This study mainly focuses on the area related to the transport geotechnics. That's what we are involving in the research study for the past few years. So let me go to the presentation. Starting with the introduction, we know that the rapid population growth and the increase in congestion in highways, there is always a high demand for fast and heavy haul trains. Most of the cities or countries, they wanted to increase the train speed and also the hauling capacity of the trains. But the problem with this increased train speed and heavy haul trains, it will be put the high kinetic energy to the railway foundations, and ultimately that get degraded when the time passes. So high pressure and kinetic energy transfer, the longevity of the track is getting reduced. We also see that high excessive lateral deformations, vertical and differential settlements, and ballast degradations. Then we will be facing problem like a derailment, frequent derailments, and ultimately that leads to accidents. So this is a common, a typical cross section of a rail track in the plan view, where most of the rail track on the right side, it shows that the common rail track, the ballasted rail track, where the rail sleepers and is placed on top of the ballast layer, where the ballast below the ballast layer we have a sub ballast or a subgrade layer. Very isolated locations such as concrete bridges or tunnels, we will be having a ballast layer placed directly on top of the concrete materials. So typically two different types of rail track. If you see this load transfer mechanism, the railroad, the wheel load is transferred to the rail, then to the slipper, then where this ballast layer, the main the action of this ballast layer is the distributing the load into the minimum possible amount to this underlying layer, sub ballast or subgrade layer. So this ballast layer, this particular layer play a significant role in the performance of the rail track. So what we are studying here is like on that particular layer, the ballast layer, a very important layer. Whenever we increase this train speed or heavier trains, that is the layer degraded very quickly, and we need to go for a frequent maintenance. So is there any way that we can reduce the degradation of that layer? We were working on this, stabilizing that particular layer with the artificial inclusions. So that's what our research studies are. The artificial inclusions that we are talking about is the rubber material and the geosynthetic material. The rubber material is commonly placed in with the rail sleepers, especially with the concrete sleepers. You can see here this under the concrete sleeper, there is a rubber layer placed underneath the sleeper, where this is the place directly in contact with the ballast layer. And also the underneath the ballast layer, especially like the track that I mentioned, like isolated locations where the track running on a bridges or tunnels, where it directly in contact with the concrete layer, where we place this under ballast mat directly underneath this ballast layer. And also in order to increase the shearing resistance, whenever the train speed is increasing, the geogrids works very well to bring the shear back, so it increased the shear resistance. And also the geocells, especially this is useful for stabilizing the sub ballast or a subgrade layer. In a conventional geomaterial testing, these are the typical apparatus that we use: triaxial, direct shear, and permeameter, where we can test using this material. The particle size ranges from clay, silt, and sand, where the maximum particle goes up to 2 millimeter, or something around 2 to 4 millimeters. But for the larger particles, these conventional geomaterial testing apparatus won't fit for the purpose of this testing. So we are looking at like ballast material, where we have this, this ballast sizes ranging from 20 millimeter to 65 millimeter. So that won't fit into this the conventional apparatus unless we go for some kind of a size reduction for a testing. And when we go for the size reduction, we also cannot capture the actual behavior correctly. So we need like some kind of a test apparatus, something like a large scale testing apparatus, which can predict correctly the cyclic stress strain behavior, shear behavior, and the permeability behavior of the soil, like in the conventional testing apparatus. So this last 4 or 5 years at the University of Peradeniya here in the civil engineering department, we are building a lot of large scale testing apparatus where it can be used for testing ballast like material, this large size granular material. This is the large scale dynamic testing facilities available at the structures laboratory of University of Peradeniya. This is a 100 kilonewton servo hydraulic dynamic actuator system having 150 millimeter stroke, and it also run up to 40 hertz frequency, so we can simulate the rail cyclic load in the laboratory. You can see here, this is the ballast box on the right side. It is currently in the, we are building that one. It's almost about to finish. So this ballast box will go underneath this large size testing apparatus, where we can simulate kind of a unit cell of a rail track, and we can use the actual ballast particle sizes, and we can test using the cyclic load. The second apparatus shown here in this one is the first one on the left side. It is the large scale direct shear apparatus, where this direct shear apparatus also we custom design and build at our department, where we can test the shear behavior of a railway ballast material, large size material without size reduction. And in your right side, this is the large scale permeability test apparatus, where the permeability behavior of the railway foundation layer materials can be tested with this the large size equipment here. This the cylinder shown here is a 1 meter height and 400 millimeter diameter, and this direct shear apparatus on the left side, it's a 400 millimeter diameter and 300 millimeter high apparatus. So these sizes were chosen based on the particle sizes that we are going to test, and we are testing here in order to minimize the boundary effect coming from this type of equipments. We also equipped with high performance computing facilities in our laboratory. We have 2 workstations where we can simulate the finite element or a discrete element modeling, where this under the cyclic loading we need high performance computing. This type of simulations runs like month time, so we need a high performance. So we are equipped with these machines. We also, in a collaboration with the Sri Lankan railways and other, the industries, where all the test materials were, collect from this Gampola railway storage yard, nearby facilities of the Sri Lankan railways. We got the approval to use some of their materials, so they frequently, supply us materials for testing. And we are also working with the Sri Lankan railways to do some of the field study in the future. In addition to that, we are collaborating with the private companies like a DSI, Samsung Group of Sri Lanka, and Pantrol, Belgium, mainly to get some of these artificial inclusions such as rubber and geosynthetic materials. So those are the facilities that we build in our laboratory here. It is all started from my PhD work at the University of Wollongong, where we have this type of equipment. The one that we build at the University of Peradeniya, it's the first its kind in Sri Lanka. We don't have anywhere else the cyclic actuator. So the same, I mean, similar one type, we kind of impressed with this particular machine. When we build this, our machine, this is similar to that, where we can test the real rail track or the unit cell at the laboratory. This is a capacity of 100 kilonewton and a frequency of 40 hertz. And also the special one other facility of this particular, the box underneath this apparatus is an independent movable vertical walls, where we can simulate the realistic boundary conditions at the at real rail track. You can see here on the right side, the materials are getting prepared before testing. We generally test like 500,000 load cycles to simulate a 2 year of service of a rail track, and using this actual ballast layer with varying frequency and the loading. These are some of the results from that study, and let me give some information about my previous study, then I will discuss about the current results. This study done for simulating 25-ton and 35-ton XL loads with the varying frequency of 15 and 20 hertz, which is like 100 and something around 150 kilometer per hour, the train running on that speeds. The results shown here is the ballast deformation and degradation when we introduce these underslipper pads to the rail track. We found that the deformations and the degradations were significantly reduced when we introduced this underslipper pad. When this train speed going from 15 hertz to 20 hertz frequency, or the load going from 25 ton to 35 ton, we see that there is a deformations and the degradation also increasing. But when we introduce this underslipper pad, we can reduce a significant amount of deformation and degradations. This particular result shows that the deformation, vertical deformation is reduced 20 to 30%, and the lateral deformation reduced by about 10 to 15%. And also the breakage, the ballast breakage, the particle degradation is very high at the top level. And when we introduce these rails, the underslipper pad at the top level with the railway sleepers, we can see about 50% reduction in ballast degradation. This is good thing. Like, I mean, whenever we increase this train speed or a load, then we can reduce amount of degradation of this ballast layer up to 50% when we introduce these rubber pads. You know, these type of rubber pads are used in many countries, mainly to reduce the noise and vibration. But you know, there is very limited study on how these materials behave in terms of geotechnical performance. So that's what we wanted to test. And this is the under ballast mat. I said, like, whenever there is a you know, concrete layer underneath the ballast, we stabilize that interface with these under ballast mats. This particular test was done at 25 and 35 ton, the frequencies ranging from 15 to 25 hertz. The similar observation here, we can see the under ballast mat also reducing 10 to 20% of a vertical and 5 to 10% of a lateral deformations. And the one on the top, it shows the ballast without the under ballast mat, and the one is shown below is with the under ballast mat. We can see that there are significant amount of reduction of ballast particle degradation. So the particle degradation at the top ballast layer level, it's a 20 to 25% reduction, and the middle layer is 30 to 50%, and the bottom layer it's about 50 to 60%. The bottom is the place where we have placed the rubber layer. And this is some of the results from our large scale direct shear apparatus. We tested these rubber interfaces, how that is performing in terms of under the shear resistance, and also the reducing the degradation. Of course, this fresh ballast, the highly angular ballast is having like, high shearing resistance. But when we introduce this relatively soft layer at the ballast to this concrete interface, it reduced the shear resistance a little bit. But the good thing is it also reduced the ballast degradation. That's what we are interested on. Even though it is reducing the shear resistance, but we have a reasonably high resistance coming from this ballast layer itself. So a small amount of reduction at the interface is not much of a problem, but saving against the degradation is a very good thing. We also simulate this rubber material for this its performance, how this is the stiffness property using this discrete element model simulation, and we have obtained reasonably good results with this the experimental findings. So the rubber material that we are using is applicable to this rail track. In terms of these, computer programs, the discrete element modelings, we replicate this ballast layer like a 3D particle computer models. Like we do this 3D scanning, then we use that as the actual ballast particles to model the behaviors. You can see here the direct shear behavior that we tested in the laboratory were modeled using the discrete element model. These are some preliminary results. We are still in working, calibrating or validating these results. But the results that we obtain coming out reasonably good. We also do this comparison with the finite element model, Abacus model. The results are promising. The conclusion from this study here, these large-scale apparatus are essential for correctly capturing the behavior of large size granular materials like railway ballast. The normal stress and the ballast slipper interface having influence on the ballast shear resistance and ballast particle breakage. We see that the small reduction of ballast shear resistance when we use the underslipper pad, but the significant reduction found of ballast particle degradation, that is the real advantage. Increase of the axial load and the train speed, of course, that is going to increase the axial and the lateral deformation and also the degradation. But when we use this underslipper pad and under ballast mat, it reduces the deformation and the degradation in a significant level. And the DEM simulations, basically these discrete element model methods are very useful for correctly capturing ballast type of a material behaviors. I would like to acknowledge the two grant, a head grant, which is a 40 million grant we obtained 2 years back. We are working on that project, and also the university research grant. We acknowledge them for this study. Thank you very much. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Navaratna Raja. That was very interesting. I'm sure that will open for some more collaborations. Well, with that, I should say I should apologize. We are behind the clock a bit seriously, and there is a keynote speaker waiting. Anyway, I know this is going to be very challenging for Dr. Senevirathna anyways. So over to you, Dr. Senevirathna. Please take the panel through the discussion and hopefully guide us to come to some conclusions. And please take around 20 minutes time. Over to you, Dr. Senevirathna.
Okay. Thank you, Prasanna. We are behind the schedule, so we have only 20 minutes to summarize all these things. As I have listened to all the speakers, what we have here is we need to prepare a roadmap for the freight enhancement in Sri Lanka Railways for 10 years. So first, let's try to see what is the current scenario in the rail freight in Sri Lanka. I think Mr. Jayasundara and then Asela would be able to give us some input on this, and also the drawbacks in the rail freight in Sri Lankan railway system. As I remember, Darshan and Vatsara gave us some hints, so let's discuss a little bit that, and then the possible improvements and suggestions. This can be with socio-economical and environmental aspects, and also we need to see the improvements in IT, ET, and OT. That means information technology, engineering technology, and operational technology. How we can improve that. Then there was an important point raised by Mr. Ranatunga, that is the logistic centers. Let's discuss a little bit, because some of the participants or the speakers highlighted that as well, and the technology that we need, and then we will summarize or we will make the framework how this enhancement towards 10 years should be focused on. Okay. Then my first question is to Mr. Jayasundara and Asela. What are the current rail freight scenario? That means the general overview in SLR.
Yeah, actually, I think that today, with the support from the ministry and other sectors, we have put high emphasis on improving our freight transportation services. I think I have listened to two of our major clients, and they are not happy.
Yeah.
I think this has been a valuable eye opener for me, and it has given me a good insight into our client expectations and the shortcomings they see in the railway current practices. I think usually this kind of frank discussion we are not having during our official meetings and discussions. So therefore, it has been a great opportunity for me to understand their viewpoints. Definitely, I would be having discussions with them in order to address their concerns, as well as attract more businesses from them. For example, INSI said they are willing to transport their finished product also through the railway network. Definitely, I look into them, and by addressing their concerns, I think, and their good word of mouth, I think we can attract more clients to the railway services, I think. So I think this is a very good opening point. We had a very frank discussion, and I heard their concerns. I think definitely in future we'll build up the discussion, maybe monthly. Then by that way, I think we can expand our footprint, freight transport and footprint.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Jayasundara. And one more thing. What about the new businesses? That means you are talking about the existing customers. Attracting more new customers, are there any strategies?
I think there's a lot of talk about having those dry ports or internal container depots, maybe at Wayangado near to Colombo. If we can do that, definitely we can cater for the freight transportation. This when you consider about the railway transportation, this double handling, sometimes triple handling happens, as a client has to bring their cargo up to the railway station, then load them onto the train, then unload them somewhere and take it back. So that a lot of time and money. So therefore, customers are not coming to railway. I think this Prima company, they have invested a lot in order to get service from the railway. So similarly, I think we cannot expect other customers to build up their own facilities. I think if there's going to be sufficient demand, even railway can do it. For example, I think regarding bringing vegetable from hill country to Colombo, I think we are willing to cater for the demand, but we need clients to come to us. If client comes with their requirement, definitely we can arrange a scheduled train, as earlier explained by a colleague, this expert from USA. I think we can arrange scheduled trains if the client is coming to us with their requirements. So I think in future, I'll try my best to listen to, attract more clients and more clients from the freight industry and cater for their demand. By doing that way, I think we can increase our footprint.
Yeah, that's good. And what about surveying? That means to do an initial feasibility study where what are the areas that need to be improved, or what are the businesses that they are open, can be open. I guess from SLR, do you have a business unit or something, marketing unit at the moment?
Yeah, we got a marketing unit, but they are not run by the professionals. Definitely, we need help there. For example, University of Peradeniya. I think we can. I also CILT. I request you to help us there. Help us to do surveys and identify the potential customers and areas the railways maybe need to change in order to cater for their requirements. I think that's the area I need your help.
Yeah, the professionals help, no? Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. Yes. And I will move to Asela. Can you just give us a quick overview of the current rolling stock and what is the strength that you have in Sri Lanka Railways?
Yes, actually, we have a total number of BGTs, that means oil tanks, around 250 running, BCGS 125, and BCF, that means container wagons, both air brake and vacuum brake, total of 70. Those are the current fleet. We are handling the train good service. That means daily we are running around 10 oil trains, around 10 oil trains and one Prima special train. For that, those are the rolling stocks available for us.
Okay. Is those rolling stock is in idle position, or you need more assets to handle this? What are the kind of problems that you are facing in this scenario, operating, I mean? Because you are in the operating side, no?
Yes, actually, for the current scenario, the rolling stock and locomotive are adequate, but if we are going for the future development, future freight operations, as our GMR said, we have to go for that. That means cooler containers for transporting vegetables and fresh fruits, like that. We need to go for that type of rolling stock also.
Okay, that means you need kind of new infrastructure. That means rolling stocks, or do you think that the existing rolling stock need to be improved, or you need to take new ones?
Yes, actually, if we are going for a future, that means for further freight transportation, we need more, I think.
Okay, so you need to have a plan for 10 years, it seems, the business part as well as the technical part. And On top of that, we have, I have experienced also in Sri Lanka Railways, there are many things to be improved in the HR side. That means human resource side, as well as the socio concerns. So I think you are not the right person to talk, but we can just comment on it.
Yeah, actually, if you consider the
Yes.
first personal side, the
Yeah.
thing is, I think railway is also a representation of a society at current situation.
Yes.
And the other thing
Exactly.
is people with disruptive power, they are having kind of a bargaining chips in their hand, because if there's going to be railway disruption, usually the pressure we get is to ensure service is going to continue. Unlike in this INSEE or Prima, we do not have free hand to deal with those disruptors. So in a way, they get enticed to do more and more. Unfortunately, sometimes taking definite action to stop those beyond our control.
Yeah.
I think little by little, I'm trying to get some control over those situations.
Yeah, yes, Mr. Jayasundara. And I think you can get him from this social science people sometimes, or the people who work on social sciences in universities. This is just a suggestion.
Yeah, definitely, we can use whatever help we can get regarding that area. That's I think tricky situation.
Yeah, it's very difficult. Yes. Yeah. And then let's move on to the improvements. So in the axle loading in Sri Lankan railways, some tracks are not because we have different track loadings, isn't it?
Yeah, I think yes. Maximum we
Yeah,
can carry
actually.
20. Yeah.
So then this also making problems for freight transportation, I guess, as I remember in the Batiklo line and also some parts of Northern line, I cannot remember those days, and also in the upcountry line, you have different axle loadings.
I think in the Northern line with the rehabilitation, it has gone up to 22, I think.
Okay.
But I think from Anuradhapura onwards towards Mahava, the current project, and from Mahava to Polgahavli, it will get improved the same position. But regarding Trinco line, I think it's somewhere much less, maybe 15 or 16. So what I have planned and put to the priority basis is to ensure that if we are talking about the freight corridors and investments that some people are trying to bring in, to have a kind of a freight corridor from Trincomalee Harbour to Colombo Harbour. Today, the connectivities are also not there. So I am asking high authorities to ensure that if project comes to have some kind of a Kurunagala Habarna new line to shorten the distance between Habarna and Kurunagala, with the same project, I am asking them to ensure that this kind of freight corridor from Habarna on to Trincomalee Harbour and connect you to Colombo Harbour with maybe 22 axle load, 20 ton axle load. That way, I think we can ensure some kind of a certainty and have a, I think, high axle load.
Okay. So in that scenario, I think there is another person in this panel who knows about the bridges and also the track geometry. That is Dr. Karunananda. Can you just explain a little bit what are the problems that we are having in bridges?
Yes, thank you. Actually, generally bridges, actually now steel bridges, now most of we have steel bridges. So steel, generally these bridges have actually the very high capacity. So, but over the years, as I know, so the railway people, so they have brought heavy engines. So now there are, as far as my knowledge, so there are some problems are occurring there. So I think railway Sri Lankan railway should take a decision on these condition monitoring of these the steel bridges. But I mean, after this monitoring, with the with the improvement, I think we can use these bridges. I mean, for some more time there. So I mean, there's something in that way. I think the railway people, I think, should work with the universities there. So now, while you are making the business model, but always also you should talk. I mean, when you go to the other country, but we see that this. I mean, this institution working with the universities like Singapore, like that. But when we come to the Sri Lanka, so they actually they don't. My understanding, they are actually really they are not cooperating with the, I don't know, the university sites also may be there. But if you can, I mean, these, I mean, the entities, if we can work together, then I don't think we don't need about many experts from the outside. So so with the, I mean, we have a problem in Sri Lanka. I mean, the railway has some problem with the resources, so funding. But if they work with the university, so this track improvement and then the bridge condition monitoring, which we can make the, I mean, how we can improve. So that thing, I think we can give it to there. So I mean, so that's actually my view. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I
Thank you,
think from
Kamal.
the from the railway side, that kind of consultancy advice we actually need. So I
Yeah.
think I will take initiative contacting
Yes.
universities and
Yes.
okay.
Yeah.
I think
Actually, I will add more. Actually, my thinking is actually it should not be like a consultancy type things. Actually, we are really, that my research area is actually about 20 years about the railway bridges and steel bridges and the University of Peradeniya and the current my university also. It's not like a consultancy type things, but it's like a helping to the another government institute there. So not like money. We have the people, I mean the students, we have postgraduate, undergraduate, and our knowledge is there. So the railway should, I mean they should ask us there. So then in that case, if we can make a framework, then I think it will be you will get benefited. I think the country will benefit and everybody will get benefited there. So that's my idea.
Yeah, definitely I will ask you. I think that's something we really need. Definitely I'll ask you. Let's work together.
Yeah, thank you both of you. I think in this way, how the railways, companies and universities work together. This point, I think Matthias and Philip can explain very well, because in Luleå, they are doing this. Matthias and Philip, can you please?
Yes.
Either of you. Yes.
I could start. Could I start?
Yes, please.
You hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, the collaboration is quite good in between the universities and in between Trafikverket, because we need to be in the front, especially because we have this iron ore line with high axle loads. We have a close collaboration with the universities in Luleå, in Stockholm, and in Gothenburg. And I think we have get a lot of interesting things and information from that collaboration. And also I have to add that it's always good to have this European collaboration also with us, because there we have more universities also. We have the universities that are located in more or less the whole Europe we can use for researching of in what we need to know and to push the limits for the axle load, but also for the traffication, as Philip mentioned in his presentation.
Yeah, thank you, Matthias. Thanks a lot. Thank you. And Philip, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I can.
Yeah, please.
We've had over 25 years of collaboration with the railway infrastructure owner and even others. And the interesting thing is to say that even though we contribute to small changes, it's been a lot of small changes that have helped, make a big difference. And for me, I think it's pretty exciting to see that even this one example I presented was this the Interreg project. It's Horizon 2020 financed project for regional. And there with the northern Sweden, northern Finland, northern Norway, and northern Russia are collaborating on certain things. Like, for example, snow removal. How do you optimize snow removal? I know it's not, really a question for you guys, but there are other things that we're also looking at. Just the things of the rails we're using, what type of steel, how it wears. I think if you're going to increase the capacity, of your railway, I mean, there's so many factors that need to play in here. And we have a lot of reports and knowledge with us that we could share, rather easily and freely. What type of clips to use as fasteners, what type of vibration dampening, mats we've used and what we've learned from that and stuff. So this, to even, how they wear in specific types of curves, what the radius of the curve is, and different temperatures even too. So that's no problem. I see lots of opportunities that that we can, share information with you. And then I think we can also learn from you guys. I mean, it doesn't matter where you are. There's always things we can learn from each other, from companies and from other countries too.
Yeah. Thank you, Philip. Thanks a lot for your nice comments. Thank you. And I will move to this HR improvements and the possible improvements. I want to hear from Darshana your view, what we should do.
Okay, in terms of HR, well,
yeah, what you have highlighted some time back. Yes.
Yeah. So basically, in terms of attitude change and also identifying the potential employees that are actually making a difference, because like I said, there are some really good employees and managers that think like the private sector, meaning they know what needs to get done to attract people like us to invest, and at the same time they understand our problems. So one of the aspects I also want to talk with GMR is identifying these people so that they could be empowered further, because like GMR said, there are a lot of people who pull this down negatively for different agendas, and there's so much unionization. So yeah. I mean, these are constant problems that we can talk forever, but at some point these need things to be changed. And I know it's not easy, because I've also been dealing with so many railway people over the last 10 years. So one of the aspects that we can help with SLR is identifying these key players that have been very positive, at the same time thinking differently and trying to make a difference. So that is one HR aspect that we can, at the moment, on an immediate aspect, help SLR with. Second thing is attitude change, because that is something that needs to change for any project to succeed, because HR is I mean, when you say HR, I'm talking about the workforce of SLR, and they are, anyway, I guess GMR would agree, I won't say understaffed, it would be overstaffed, but understaffed with people who can make change, and can deliver to the demand that the private sector would be demanding in. Obviously, there's always been a mismatch between the private sector and government sector institutions, but that is something that can change and that should be changed. So on a very broad sense, that's two aspects that I can think of at the moment. But yeah, so that in short is what I can say with regard to
yes, Darshana.
Yeah.
Yeah, this view is valuable. Yeah, I think Mr. Jayasundar will note it down.
Yeah, and
Thank
just
you.
to add on one of the comments Ms. Jackson
Yeah.
made in regard to the encourage in the private sector also. I mean, we are always willing to give our time for SLR to help SLR with our experience, and also help the private sector understand where the bottlenecks are, because we took the hard route. We made so many investments, even for infrastructure, even for rolling stock. Not all private sectors would do that, but at the same time, there are ways and means that we can use the current assets of SLR to make certain projects feasible. It can't happen overnight, but we have the experience of where things went wrong, and also we also have the experience of where things took unwanted delays, which every other investor should not face. We were an exception to stay on with it and push through continuously, relentlessly to get this going. But I don't see every private sector going through that on a long-term run. So we can definitely help SLR in terms of fighting these bottlenecks, and also seeing the areas that unwantedly delayed projects. So those are two aspects that I could definitely help out with.
Yeah, I think as General Manager of Sri Lanka Railways, definitely I will have further discussions with you regarding those matters.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you both of you. Yeah, now I will move on to Nalina Dayananda, and also to Mr. Abethisa Vandara, because there is a key point raised called this logistic centers. What is your view on this? First, Nalina.
Good evening, everybody. I think we have a railway network which was built to transport goods rather than the passengers, which the focus has changed over a period of time. And our roads are congested, and so many differences that you compare now and then. I think it's, as I know, because I have been working with INSEE before joining here, and I also have the experience with railway more than 7 years altogether, running these two projects that we have. So altogether, this concept of this corridors or this what do you call the freight centers has been discussing even previously, time to time, certain teams which has come and discussed with us. But I think it's a very good concept, and it should be a one that we have to put in place. But it needs a lot of investments, I guess. First thing is to do a kind of a research and identify who willing to go on this channel. One, the prospective clients that can invest. And third thing, you facilitate them to invest in such facilities so that it is benefited by the railway as well as them. It has to be a collaborative effort. And thirdly, if we can start using existing resources in a way for us to have this kind of centers without putting money in first, so that the people will get used to, and they will have a kind of a interest to come and work with the railway. So those are the things that I feel and see as necessary for us to do. Of course, GMR as well as Darshana touched upon the human aspect of it, which is utmost important to address or to start, at least from somewhere. I think that's my perspective on that.
Yeah, thank you very much, Nalini. And Mr. Abethisa Vandara, how is your view?
Dr. Senevirathna, I don't think he's anymore there. I think he has left.
Okay.
We can move to another panelist.
Yeah, then let's ask from Manoj Ekanayaka if he's here. Looks like he's not there as well, right?
Yeah, we'll skim him as well. He's also not there.
Okay. Yeah. Then let's move to Mr. Milan. Milan will be there, right? Yeah. Is he there?
I think Milan is also not there.
Okay, okay. Thank you, Nalini.
He has also left, yes.
Yeah, okay. Because we are behind the schedule, that's why it's okay. And then the last part, what we need to do is collect all these things. Hello.
We lost your voice for a while. Now we can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, because there is a power cut off. So my connection went off. I'm connected via mobile. It's okay. To summarize everything, and one more thing that I need to ask is Professor Baker is here. Yes. Professor Baker, I want you to just summarize that one more technological aspect, that is IT, that means information technology, engineering technology, and also operation technology, how we can merge together to enhance the freight improvements.
Well, yes, thanks for that question. Well, I think that many of you are also experts in engineering and technology, which is not my main field. But I think that especially with regard to information technology, there is a very high potential to combine the actual use of railroad and some other things we've seen with digital technology for data collection. So there's so many possibilities. We have smart sensors, smart devices. They are extremely cheap and reliable these days. So it would be very interesting also with regard to getting, first of all, a picture of the actual state of a railway network, for instance, in Sri Lanka, to collect more data on the actual use of the railway network by using kind of Industry 4.0 devices, to use GPS, for instance, to collect data over a longer period of time. Well, maybe also use other sensors that can figure out how what's the shape of the railway network. We've seen some examples for things that are in connection with the underground, the ground that's below the rails, and all these things could be collected. And I think from this information, this would be extremely helpful to get more insights about the further development of the railway network, both in terms of infrastructure, like where should new tracks be built, or where should be maintenance, where should be logistics centers, but also in terms of operation and scheduling, for instance, because these there's also a lot of potential with proper scheduling to get most out of the existing network that we have. So I think digital technology in terms of data collection, in terms of data processing, is something which should be done and should be included in all the efforts that are being taken in the near future.
Yeah, thank you very much, Professor Baker. And to conclude everything and to summarize the discussion points, we started with the current scenario, and then we went to the possible developments or possible improvements. And then what we came across was that from the current operator of the railway wanted some help from both from the private and public academic partners to improve themselves and to improve the freight for their freight involvement for 10 years. So this is the conclusion that we have got, and I think I can conclude on this. So, Prasanna, this is handing over this to you. Prasanna.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Senevirathna, for that smooth run. Although we were slightly behind, I think small delays add up to a long delay. I guess it is pretty much similar to the Sri Lanka Railways, probably some of the issues. Well, let's conclude the session. But before that, we have an important person behind the screen who was helping the workshop throughout, Dr. Asela Kulatunga, who is in fact a railway fan, apart from his technical contributions. Dr. Kulatunga, over to you. You can mention like a few things about the potential collaboration that we can carry out with all these.
Thank you very much, Prasanna and Dr. Dhammika, for continuing this workshop for detailed way, even though we are slightly behind the schedules. Anyway, now the main intention behind organizing this workshop is to bring all these stakeholders together to decide what kind of roadmap we can think of when it comes to the freight footprint of Sri Lanka Railways. I think there were so many important points were discussed. So what we could do as a research institute, or who initiated this work as a research institute, we could collaborate with all these stakeholders, especially to think about long-term perspective on this matter, because unless we have this freight wing, I think Sri Lanka Railways will not be able to run, at least in a reasonable near future, because of the overheads and all this the loss-making organization. So therefore, as an organization, I think they also are very keen to promote this thing. So that is a good thing. But from our end, actually, there are so many resources available in terms of doing this analysis and basically to predict the potential avenues where they can think of possible improvements, at least, especially to go for this short-term, long-term, and medium-term, as well as the lower-hanging fruits, etc. So on the other side, with this, especially with our own collaborations with especially Europe partners, I think we can even go for some detailed research in terms of developing this as a the efficient transportation mode, because that will directly connect with many of the supply chains. So therefore, there are many options available, especially with this Erasmus and Horizon 2021 plus situations, etc., where we can get some Europe partners support as well, especially from the resource persons. Also today, now there are 3 from Europe. So they basically, with our contacts, we can get maximum benefit to the Sri Lanka Railways through this. So therefore, I think we will update all the stakeholders who take part in this workshop based on your inputs, valuable inputs. We will try to come up with kind of a plan what we are thinking as an organization who organize this workshop, how we could move further, and how we could get maximum benefit out of our contacts and our involvement with other countries, especially on operational, especially Till Baker mentioned, Professor Till Baker just mentioned just before me, about the operational aspects, especially on the scheduling and the operation excellence related requirement, because those are not that much difficult to do. It's matter of doing proper analysis. I know, especially when it comes to the INSEE, there are plenty of the clinker, limestones to be transported, but the corridor given is not adequate enough, mainly because of the passenger trains. So once we were trying to analyze that one, and we noticed that there were some delays happening due to the poor scheduling of the passenger trains as well as these freight trains. So likewise, there are some lower hanging fruits where we can do some modifications easily with the collaboration of both parties or multiple stakeholders. So we can prioritize certain things, and we can think of even going for a long-term detailed research with the especially Europe partners and Europe funding, etc. We can explore. So those are the avenues we are having. So we'll share with the support of Dr. Senevirathna as well as Dr. Prasanna. Will write up and then share among you all, and you can give your valuable thoughts about what we think, whether we thought everything in a correct way as you suggested or you proposed, and then we'll see as a team how to move forward. Thank you very much for you all for your valuable contribution. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kulathunga, who was guiding us throughout organizing this workshop. And with that note, we are coming to the end of the workshop. Let me quickly thank all the participants, all the participants from Sri Lanka, all the general manager, railways, the secretary, the ministry, and all the delegates from different organizations. Thank you very much. And our participants from the western part of the world early this morning is spending with us on this holiday. Philip, Matthias, Professor Till and Ja, who joined from the USA, and all the participants, the audience who were listening with patience, and all other resource persons who added very valuable points to make this discussion very fruitful. And finally, but most importantly, Dr. Dhammika Senevirathna spending with his very busy schedules returning back to Spain, spending this evening with us, doing a very smooth run to converging us to where we should be. Okay, with that, I should also apologize all the participants and the audience for delaying the keynote. We have another interesting keynote from Professor Tharanga Rajapaksha, who will come shortly. And I should apologize also Dr. Tharanga for keeping you waiting. Anyways, we are concluding this workshop, but I invite well, all the participants, depend on your convenience, kindly continue to be here in the same link for Dr. Tharanga's keynote. But in terms of the rail freight workshop, this I am now concluding this session. With that, I am handing over to Smrtya to take the proceedings. Thank you very much, and have a good evening. Have a good day, all the panelists. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, coming up next is a keynote speech by Professor Tharanga Rajapaksha under the topic of emerging business models in logistics management. To give a small introduction to Professor Rajapaksha, let me now invite Mr. Namal Bandaranayake,